Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to see you again. We appreciate your presence with us today. We have a captivating tale to unfold, so let us embark on this journey together. My name is Christopher, and if you had whispered to me years ago that my gentle heart would guide me into the depths of the most profound betrayal, I would have met your words with a disbelieving smile. Yet, life often reveals truths that challenge our beliefs. I offered all that I could, striving to be the partner and figure of support that my wife and stepdaughter truly deserved. I nurtured the little girl as if she were my own, believing that love could bridge the gap where blood ties fell short. The woman I cherished, the child I nurtured, turned away from me in ways I never thought possible. What transpired? What led us to this moment? Allow me to guide you to the moment it all started. The memory of that day lingers. The moment I encountered Nancy and her daughter, Linda, in the hospital waiting room. I found myself by my cousin's side, enduring the chill of those hard, unyielding chairs, striving to anchor my thoughts away from the shadows of despair. In that moment, she captured my attention. The woman beside me cradles a small girl in her embrace. She possessed a captivating beauty that was undeniable. Yet, it was not her beauty that captivated me. It was the way she appeared, weary, deeply affected. There was an undeniable allure in her expression that captivated the senses. Though I was a stranger to her, I could sense the weight of her struggles. I inquired, just a gentle, "Hey, how are you feeling?" Initially, she lingered in uncertainty, caught between the impulse to dismiss me and the desire to share her thoughts. But after a moment, she let out a soft sigh and confessed that she wasn't all right. Her daughter, Linda, was unwell and required care. The true challenge lay beyond the mere presence of the illness. It was the price to pay. She found herself alone, without a safety net to catch her fall. Before Linda took her first breath, her child's father had chosen to leave. Now it was just her, shouldering the weight in solitude. There was an undeniable change within me, a stirring that I couldn't quite understand. In a moment of clarity, I simply expressed my willingness to take care of the hospital bill. She stood still, as if the weight of my words had taken her by surprise. She even requested that I say it again, perhaps believing she had misunderstood my words. When she understood the depth of my sincerity, her entire expression transformed. A wave of relief washes over me, mingling with disbelief and a deep sense of gratitude. Everything was reflected in her gaze. Her gratitude flowed like a gentle stream, and in that moment, a radiant smile graced her lips for the first time since I'd taken my seat. Before I departed, we shared our numbers, and then life gently unfolded. Time flowed gently, yet her silence lingered in my thoughts. I found myself taken by surprise. It was one of those fleeting moments where you offer a hand to someone and then gently drift away. One day, a message arrived from a number I didn't recognize. I nearly overlooked it, yet as I opened it and caught sight of her name, Nancy, a rush of memories flooded back to me in an instant. She began by expressing her gratitude once more. She shared with me that Linda was thriving and approaching the milestone of 2 years old. I responded, inquiring about her well-being and how life had been treating her. The dialogue unfolded effortlessly from that point onward. What I thought would be a brief interaction blossomed into a meaningful dialogue. She shared her experiences at work, the challenges of nurturing a child on her own, and the lingering fatigue that seemed to envelop her. I found myself captivated, engaging in a dance of questions and answers, and before long, the evening had slipped away in a flurry of messages exchanged between us. As the conversation drew to a close, she uttered a remark that took me by surprise. "It's been some time, hasn't it? If you're available, I would be delighted to invite you for dinner." A heartfelt expression of gratitude. Initially, I felt a flicker of doubt, yet I reassured myself that it was inconsequential. Having shown her kindness, she felt a deep desire to reciprocate in her own way. That was the essence of it, and so I found myself in agreement. That dinner blossomed into an experience far beyond mere sustenance. It was an intimate gathering, a lovingly prepared meal shared in a warm, inviting apartment. We shared our thoughts on a myriad of topics, both significant and trivial, and in that moment, I witnessed her laughter bloom freely, unburdened by any shadows. That night marked the beginning of a beautiful journey. From that moment on, our conversations became more frequent and intimate. Messages transformed into phone calls blossomed into late-night conversations, and soon enough, we found ourselves cherishing every moment we could share together. It wasn't long before emotions intertwined, and we both confessed our desire for this connection. We desired each other. I was completely certain of the path I was about to embark on. I understood she had a child, and my feelings for her went beyond mere dating. I found myself entering the depths of their lives, reminding myself that love reveals itself through the gestures we make. I revealed my true self to her. I had shown her my unwavering support when she needed it the most. I believed that was the essence of love. I was completely unaware of the depth of my misunderstanding. Our time together was brief, yet it felt right to take the step towards forever. Our wedding was intimate and serene, just as we had envisioned together. For me, it transcended the wedding itself. It was a promise I was embracing, not only to Nancy but also to her daughter, Linda. From the very start, I understood that being with Nancy meant embracing the role of a father to Linda as well, and my heart was fully open to that journey. She remained a young girl, untouched by the world, brimming with vitality and wonder. She had already experienced the heartache of being left behind by the man who was meant to be her protector. I couldn't bear to see her endure that once more. From the very beginning, I embraced Linda as if she were part of me. I always wished for her to sense our connection, to know that we were intertwined in every way. I was present for each significant moment. I wasn't embodying the essence of father. I was her father, and for years, it seemed we had created a bond that was deep, something truly meaningful. For what felt like an eternity, I held the belief that Linda viewed me as her true father. She always referred to me as Dad, never by my first name. I was her guardian, her source of strength, and I believed that connection was everlasting. But everything transformed when she embraced her 13th year. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and suddenly she radiated a new essence that caught me off guard. Her gaze met mine with an unfamiliar intensity, as if she believed I had concealed my true self from her all this time. In an instant, the warmth that once danced in her eyes faded into a chilling stillness. She grew remote, filled with frustration, and resolute in her stance. It felt as though she had chosen to believe that my role as a non-biological father diminished my voice in her life. Initially, I made an effort to embrace patience. I understood that the journey through adolescence could be challenging, and I believed it was merely a transient stage. Yet the turmoil only deepened. She chose to disregard even the simplest of household guidelines. I gently urged her to return before the shadows began to dance. She began to arrive home as the night deepened, each moment stretching with unspoken tension. I gently requested her to share her location, ensuring her safety was at the forefront of my mind. The world can be perilous, particularly for young women. She gently declined. And then there was the one principle I held closest to my heart, a steadfast belief in the importance of waiting, no entanglements at such a tender age. I was aware of the possibilities, the dangers, the outcomes that could unfold. Yet to her, I seemed merely intrusive. She perceived my affection as a form of dominance. The harder I sought to lead her, the more she resisted. The sense of respect began to fade, leaving a lingering ache in the air. Regardless of my actions, I found myself cast as the adversary. One evening, I returned home from work, weary yet filled with a sense of relief at the thought of unwinding. As I strolled by the dining table, my gaze fell upon Linda's phone. The glow of the screen lingered, a soft reminder of a recent message that had just passed through. I found myself hesitating, as if an unseen force gently urged me to linger a moment longer. Perhaps it was an innate sense or the way she had been so enigmatic in her recent behavior. I gently lifted it and revealed the words within. Initially, I perceived it as mere teenage banter, nothing out of the ordinary. Yet, As I continued to scroll, a flutter of tension stirred within me. The exchange was not between Linda and a fellow student. It was with a man, someone who carried the weight of experience. I explored his profile, delving into the details, and my deepest concerns were validated. This was a mature man, clearly in his 20s, engaging in conversation with my young stepdaughter, who had just turned 16. Sweet words, playful exchanges, intentions to connect. It was clear to anyone paying attention how this would unfold. I moved forward without a moment's pause. I brought the phone directly to Nancy, anticipating the response that any mother would naturally feel: worry, perhaps even a touch of alarm. She barely glanced at the messages before her gaze shifted towards me, a storm brewing in her eyes. "Why are you looking through her phone?" she asked, her voice tinged with a mix of surprise and concern. "That is her intimate space, Christopher. It's important to respect her boundaries and not encroach upon her personal space in such a manner." I was captivated. Secrecy? Was that truly her foremost worry at this moment? An adult man was attending to our daughter with care, and rather than standing by my side, she seemed to treat me as if I were the source of the issue. "Nancy, can you feel the intensity of the moment unfolding around us?" I attempted to connect with her on a deeper level. This is not about prying into someone else's life. This is about cherishing Linda. She was resolute. She brushed aside my worries as if I were merely overreacting, as though I were a father intent on overseeing every aspect of Linda's existence. It was as if time stood still, and I found myself lost in the moment, struggling to grasp the reality unfolding around me. This was a precarious moment. Any parent with awareness would respond thoughtfully. Yet Nancy, she simply dismissed it. And from that moment, everything began to unravel. Linda embraced her mother's disposition to the fullest. Her demeanor shifted rapidly. She began to linger in the evenings, seemingly untouched by the boundaries I attempted to establish. On certain evenings, she would wander in well past twilight, emerging from vehicles piloted by men whose years seemed far removed from the innocence of her youth. Whenever I approached her, she would dismiss me with a flick of her eyes, as if I were merely a fleeting thought, unworthy of her attention. "Mind your own affairs," she would retort, her voice laced with a hint of fire. "You may not be my true father after all." The words pierced through me, but what resonated even deeper was the silence from Nancy, a silence that spoke volumes. She allowed Linda to express herself freely with me. She never offered me her support. I found myself observing the unraveling, a deep sense of helplessness washing over me. One day, I returned home sooner than I typically would. In the soft glow of the living room, my wife, Nancy, and my stepdaughter, Linda, shared a moment together, while a stranger, a man I had never encountered before, sat across from them. He bore a captivating resemblance to Linda, not an exact match, yet undeniably close. I moved deeper into the room, allowing my keys to fall softly onto the side table, creating a gentle sound that echoed in the stillness. As the evening settled in, I spoke, my voice steady and calm. My gaze danced between them, pausing on Nancy with a certain intensity. Typically, she would provide a gentle introduction, perhaps a soft, "This is so and so," but today, silence enveloped her. Linda remained silent as well. They lingered in silence, their gazes fixed upon me, as if anticipating a moment yet to unfold. I cast a lingering look back at the man. He overlooked me, leaving his name unspoken and his hand unoffered. The silence in the room lingered, thick and palpable. Yet I maintained my poise. If Nancy wished to reveal his identity to me, she would do so. If not, I would discover the truth in due time. In that moment, I chose the path that felt most right. I offered a subtle nod and gracefully moved past them. Later that night, after the man had departed, I turned to Nancy, seeking the clarity that lingered in the air. Who was that captivating presence? I inquired, maintaining a calm and even tone. Without a moment's pause, she replied, "That's Linda's true father." For a fleeting instant, I wondered if my ears had deceived me. Who is the true father of Linda? After all this time? After all that has transpired? I had nurtured Linda since she was just a 10 or 2 years old. I inhaled deeply, striving to keep my feelings in check. What made you decide to bring him here without giving me a heads up first? My voice flowed with tranquility, yet within me, a tempest stirred. That single question ignited a cascade of emotions. Linda's expression shifted, a storm brewing within her, and she rose abruptly from her seat. Do you believe we exist solely to serve you? I have a feeling you can guide our actions. Her voice resonated with a deep intensity. My eyes widened, taken aback by her response. Linda, that's not. You're crossing a line, she interrupted, her voice growing more intense. I glanced at my wife, Nancy, hoping she would intervene, perhaps offer some comfort or understanding. But instead, she remained still, arms crossed, her gaze fixed on me as if I were the source of the tension. Before I could fully grasp the moment, Linda's voice pierced the air with words that would etch themselves into my heart for all time. Why don't you simply fade away? In that moment, I found myself enveloped in a profound stillness. The young woman I had nurtured had just whispered for me to vanish from her life. I turned to Nancy, hoping she would offer a gentle reprimand, a word of guidance, or perhaps just a response that would fill the silence between us. Instead, Nancy locked eyes with me, her voice cool and distant as she stated, "She's right." A part of me broke apart, leaving a profound emptiness within. Silence enveloped the moment, heavy with unspoken words. In silence, I turned and let my footsteps carry me away. I wonder if you've ever experienced the feeling of being in a place where your presence was not embraced. It was precisely that way for me in the moments that followed that confrontation. Nancy and Linda regarded me with a chilling detachment. Their silence resonated with a depth that overshadowed any heated exchange. As I entered the room, their presence seemed to fade away. Whenever I attempted to engage in conversation, I was met with brief replies or, even more disheartening, silence. As I sat at the dinner table, their voices flowed between them, creating a world that felt just out of reach, as if I were a mere shadow in their vibrant exchange. It felt like I had drifted into a shadow, lingering in the corners of my own sanctuary. Each time I stepped over that threshold, a wave of emotion washed over me, as if I were crossing into a space that was not entirely mine. I realized I could no longer continue down this path. I felt it was the right moment to reach out to my lawyer. I sought to explore my choices, yearning to find a way to gracefully step away from this turmoil without sacrificing all that I had built. I arranged the meeting, believing I was the one initiating the connection. Yet, life possesses a curious irony. Little did I realize that as I prepared to broach the subject of divorce, Nancy and Linda had already taken that step ahead of me. They had quietly prepared divorce papers without my knowledge. The intention was unmistakable, to take away all that I held dear and cast me out from the very place I called home. They must have believed they were quite astute, biding their time to present me with those papers at just the right moment. Yet destiny wove a different tapestry. When my lawyer called me back, his voice carried a curious blend of amusement and gravity. "Christopher," he murmured, "I need you to pay close attention. Your connection with Nancy was never formalized in marriage. Initially, I believed I might have misunderstood his words. How could such a thing be conceivable? We celebrated a beautiful union. We shared our promises. There was a guiding presence, a moment of connection. Everything felt profound. Yet in that moment, he shared his thoughts. It seems that the man who united us in marriage lacked the legal credentials to officiate weddings. He was merely a figure in a robe, lost in a world of imagination. And to add a layer of intrigue, our state did not acknowledge common law marriages. That meant, in the eyes of the law, Nancy held no power over me, my home, or my possessions. I lingered in that moment, absorbing the details that unfolded before me. And then it washed over me. Nancy was blissfully unaware. All this time, she had been contemplating a separation, envisioning a future where she would claim a part of what I cherished. Yet, in the eyes of the law, there was nothing to grasp. She didn't hold the title of my wife according to the law. That meant I could gracefully step away, untouched by any loss. Unburdened, they can simply be guided away. In that moment, I chose silence as my response. Not at this moment. I intended to relax and observe as they engaged in their playful dance. And then, when the moment arrived for them to act, I would be the one in possession of all the secrets. As I entered my home one evening, I was greeted by the sight of Linda's father, comfortably seated on my couch, his legs elegantly crossed, savoring a drink that my wife had likely prepared for him. Nancy and Linda nestled close to him. I inhaled deeply, maintaining a steady yet resolute tone. "Text, I want you to leave my home," I declared, holding his gaze with intensity. The silence that enveloped the moment was palpable, yet it was fleeting. Nancy sprang from her seat, her expression a tempest of emotion. "You don't have the right to make that choice," she replied sharply. Linda leaped in without hesitation, her voice laced with a familiar sense of assurance. "Oh, really? Who do you believe yourself to be?" I allowed them to express their feelings freely. I allowed them to express their frustrations freely. And when they had finished, I softly echoed my words, my voice steady and calm. "This is my sanctuary. You're not allowed to invite anyone here without my approval." That is the conclusion. Linda's father rose to his feet, a playful smirk dancing on his lips as if he found the entire situation delightfully entertaining. Without uttering a single word, he gathered his belongings and stepped away, leaving an unspoken tension in the air. Yet, Nancy and Linda had more to share. Far from it. Moments after he departed, Nancy swept away, only to return with a collection of papers clutched tightly in her hand. She placed them on the table with a flourish, as if revealing a moment of triumph. Linda stood beside her, arms crossed, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "Please sign it," Nancy urged softly. "Do you wish for this to come to an end between us? All right, your divorce is here. Let's embrace this moment together." I gazed at the papers, then turned my attention to them, and I let out a soft, melodic laugh. I could sense the bewilderment flicker in their expressions. They anticipated a whirlwind of emotions, a storm of turmoil and urgency. I simply settled into my chair, a soft smile lingering on my lips. "Separation," I replied, gently shaking my head. "What marriage are you referring to?" Nancy let out a soft, dismissive laugh. "Oh, please don't begin with the teasing now," she said, her eyes glimmering with a mix of exasperation and intrigue. "Simply sign the papers, please." I leaned in, allowing my arms to gently cradle the table's edge. I suggested she consult her lawyer before she found herself in a more compromising position, my tone steady, laced with a hint of amusement. Since we never exchanged vows in the eyes of the law, for the first time that night, she found herself momentarily lost for words. Her confidence wavered, just a touch. Linda glanced back and forth between us, a look of uncertainty in her eyes. "Mother." Nancy paused, her heart fluttering with uncertainty. In that moment, she took her phone, her silence speaking volumes, and stepped out of the room. The following morning, she disappeared for what felt like an eternity. When she finally returned, her face held a delicate pallor, and her expression seemed to carry the weight of unspoken emotions. She had visited her lawyer. She had taken the time to ensure everything was in order, and she had discovered the essence of reality. Nancy remained silent. She settled into her seat, her gaze lost in the distance. Linda, her voice barely a breath, called out, "Mom." Yet, Nancy found herself without any answers. For the very first time, she felt the weight of loss, and she found herself powerless to change it. Later, I found myself at the dining table, enveloped in a moment of quiet reflection. As Nancy stood before me, her face radiated a deep sense of longing. It's clear she was unable to uncover any hidden paths. At last, her voice emerged, more tender than I had ever experienced. "Christopher, I know we can find a way to make this right." I found myself at a crossroads. I observed her for a fleeting moment. She came to understand that she held no rightful claim to anything. Does she truly wish to mend what has been broken? "No, Nancy," I replied, my voice calm yet filled with an undercurrent of emotion. Everything has reached its conclusion. My choice was already clear to me. You and your daughter have a mere 3 days to find a new place to call home. I rose to my feet, meeting her eyes with a steady intensity. Go embrace the connection with your child's father. She parted her lips, a flicker of hesitation dancing in her eyes, as if words of protest were on the brink of escape. Yet, silence lingered between us, heavy with unspoken words. Linda, her beloved daughter, observed quietly from the hallway. Her expression had softened, revealing a sense of calm. She appeared apprehensive, as if she had just grasped the weight of her choices. Yet, the moment for remorse had slipped away. The following days unfolded quietly, wrapped in a gentle stillness. They gathered their belongings in silence, gliding through the house like whispers in the night. Silence enveloped the space, a gentle calm replacing the harsh words and empty bravado that once filled the air. There was a gentle embrace of the destiny they had woven for themselves. As the last box was lifted away, I lingered at the threshold, my gaze following them as they crossed the threshold for the final time. In their downfall, there was no pleasure to be found, only a profound, enveloping tranquility. For years, I poured my heart into creating a family with someone who never recognized my worth. I devoted my time, effort, and affection to nurturing a daughter who never recognized me as her father. Yet in that moment, I felt an exhilarating sense of liberation. I gently shut the door, sealing the world outside. Though I had wandered through years of uncertainty, I am grateful that it culminated in this beautiful moment. It's often said that karma has a way of prevailing in the end. Yet, the reality is that it simply does not. Not every time. It's disheartening to witness those who act with malice escape unscathed, while those with pure intentions bear the weight of their choices. In this instance, fate gracefully unfolded as it was meant to. It reached beyond the guilty, touching the hearts of many. It liberated me from an existence where I felt reduced to mere utility and overlooked. Some betrayals wound only the one who betrays. Nancy and Linda believed they were orchestrating my downfall, envisioning a scenario where they would claim my money and my home while I faced the daunting task of rebuilding my life. But ultimately, they became their own undoing. They wished to witness my downfall, yet all they accomplished was my liberation. What are your thoughts on this? Was I too unaware in the beginning? Was I blind to the signs that were unfolding before me? Do you believe I made the right choice by offering them an opportunity? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I would be delighted to know what you think. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who might appreciate it as well. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to our next encounter.